The physical characteristic of real estate that means that every parcel of land is different is known as B. Uniqueness refers to the idea that no two parcels of land are identical or occupy the exact same location, making each parcel irreplaceable. Immobility means that the land is fixed in its geographical location and cannot be moved. Indestructibility highlights the durability of the land which cannot be physically destroyed. Scarcity, an economic characteristic of land, indicates that when the availability of land is limited, its value and price tend to rise. The characteristics of value include which of these? B. The key characteristics of value are demand, utility, scarcity, and transferability, often remembered by the acronym DUST. Scarcity refers to the limited availability of comparable properties. Competition describes the interaction of supply and demand, which influences property prices to increase or decrease. The economic principle of anticipation asserts that a property's value is influenced by the expectation of future events. Balance is a financial context, typically refers to the amount left after performing specific calculations. A house with outmoded plumbing is suffering from D. Outmoded plumbing is an example of outdated design features that reduces a property's value. This type of depreciation may be considered curable if the cost of replacing the plumbing is justified by the increase in the property's value. However, it does not fall under physical deterioration caused by deferred maintenance. External depreciation, on the other hand, refers to factors outside the property that negatively affect its value. Which approach of value require the value of the land to be calculated separately from the value of the improvements? B. The cost approach involves calculating a separate estimate of value for the land. The formula for this method is the estimated replacement or reproduction cost of the improvements minus accrued depreciation plus the estimated land value, resulting in the property's estimated value. In contrast, neither the income approach nor the sales comparison approach separately evaluates the land value from the property's improvements. Which of these is not considered by an appraiser using the income approach to value? A. Depreciation is a key calculation in the cost approach, but is not used in the income approach. The income approach relies on the capitalization rate and the annual net operating income, NOI, to determine a property's value. Using the formula NOI divided by a capitalization rate equals value. The first step in the income approach is estimating the property's annual gross income. A pizza parlor rents space in a retail shopping center. Its owner bolts a large pizza oven to the floor to cook the pizzas. The oven is a trade fixture. The oven used for a specific business purpose is classified as a trade fixture, making it personal property even though it is attached to the rented space. The business owner must remove the oven on or before the lease deadline. A fixture, on the other hand, is an item permanently attached to the property and considered real property. If the restaurant owner installs an oven in a way that makes it difficult to remove without causing significant damage, and it is not removed by the end of the lease, the oven may become a permanent fixture and therefore real property belonging to the landlord. Personal property includes all of these except a custom built-in bookcase. The key detail here is built in. Since the bookcase is attached to the property, it is considered real property. In contrast, items like chairs, implements, and trade fixtures are classified as personal property. Which of these liens usually would be given highest priority in dispersing funds from a foreclosure sale? A. Unpaid real estate property taxes hold the highest priority and take the lead during the liquidation of a property at a foreclosure sale. These taxes are considered a statutory lien superseding contractual liens like mortgages. Regardless of when they were recorded, unpaid property taxes also take precedence over mechanics liens and judgments. A mechanics lien would be properly classified as B. A mechanics lien is classified as a specific lien because it applies solely to a particular property and affects no other properties. It is an involuntary lien, meaning it is placed on the property without the owner's consent. In contrast, a general lien allows a creditor to claim all of an owner's assets, both real and personal, to satisfy a debt. An equitable lien, on the other hand, is created through a written agreement in which the parties agree to use a specific property as a security for a debt or obligation. Which lien affects all real property of a debtor? C. A general lien applies to all of a debtor's real and personal property. Unlike a specific lien, which is limited to a single piece of real property or personal property, a voluntary lien, like a mortgage, is created with the property's owner's consent. In contrast, an involuntary lien is imposed on the property without the owner's agreement. Covenants, conditions, and restrictions, CC and Rs, are enforced by B. CC and Rs are private restrictions typically outlined in an association's bylaws. In contrast, governmental controls over property include tools such as police powers and zoning regulations. All of these are true about radon except C. Radon is a radioactive gas that is colorless, odorless, and tasteless. The risk of radon exposure increases as it accumulates in enclosed spaces due to poor ventilation. Modern energy-efficient buildings with sealed walls and windows can create conditions that encourage radon buildup. Once present in areas like basements or crawl spaces, radon can quickly spread throughout a building via heating and ventilation systems. Environmental factors such as rain, colder temperatures, and strong winds can further contribute to radon accumulation. Mitigation involves improving ventilation to safely direct the gas outside of the home. The purpose of building permits is to C. Requiring building permits allows municipal officials to monitor new construction and alterations, ensuring they comply with local building codes. Building inspectors evaluate constructions, repairs, and modifications to confirm adherence to these standards. While building permits often involve fees, their primary objective is to promote public safety. It's important to note that building permits do not address issues such as property encroachments. Homeowners associations can control the number of pets allowed. A homeowners association, the HOA, has the authority to enforce rules such as limiting the number of pets or setting other restrictions. However, an HOA cannot impose any rule that violates the law. For example, restricting the number of children, families, or ethnic groups would directly violate federal fair housing acts and is strictly prohibited. To determine whether a location can be put in the future use as a retail store, you would examine A, zoning ordinances control how properties within specific areas of a jurisdiction can be utilized. Non-conforming uses apply to properties that are established before the current zoning regulations, but are still allowed under those rules. Building codes, on the other hand, are regulations that define the required construction standards for new buildings or repairs to ensure safety and compliance. Which of these is not a form of co-ownership? B. Ownership in severalty refers to property ownership by a single individual or a single legal entity, such as a corporation. In contrast, tenancy in common allows multiple individuals, co-tenants, to hold an undivided fractional interest in the same property. Tenancy by the entirety is a form of joint ownership available exclusively to married couples, where the surviving spouse automatically gains full ownership of the property upon the other's passing. Community property includes both personal and real property acquired by either spouse during a marriage, with ownership shared equally between both partners. Which of these about a condominium is false? C. In a condo, each owner holds a fee simple title to their individual unit. In a cooperative, ownership is structured differently, with owners holding proprietary leases instead of direct ownership. Condominium owners share ownership of the common elements as tenants in common with all other unit owners. Each owner receives their own real estate tax statement and is responsible for maintaining property casualty insurance for their unit. As outlined in condominium declarations, the condominium association, however, provides insurance coverage for the common elements. A property is owned by 3 cousins as tenants in common. If one of the cousins dies without a will, to whom will his interest pass? The deceased cousin's heirs. When a tenant in common passes away, their share of the property typically transfers according to the terms of their will. Since the cousin in the scenario died without a will, the property will be distributed to the heirs specified by the state's laws of descent and distribution. It will not escheat to the state. The remaining 2 cousins will keep their respective fractional interest in the property and will now share ownership as a tenant in common with the heirs of the deceased cousin. Which of these is true of condominium ownership? The common elements cannot be sold separately. While individual condominium owners hold an interest in the common elements as tenants in common, these common elements cannot be sold separately from the unit. Unlike other forms of tenancy in common, unit owners do not have the right to partition the common elements. Each unit owner is responsible for paying real estate taxes on their individual unit. Condominium owners also have the right to mortgage or will their fee simple ownership of their unit. A corporation takes title to real property. C. In severalty. A corporation is considered a single legal entity, often referred to as an artificial person under the law, and can own property in severalty. Unlike partnerships or trust, a corporation operates independently as its own entity. It cannot hold property with the right of survivorship, as would be the case in joint tenancy. If this was helpful, give us a thumbs up and subscribe, because we drop a new video every week to help you pass your national real estate exam.